Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Australian's webinar Navigating the Landscape of European Data Disclosure Procedures. Before starting, just a couple of things to take into consideration about the webinar. The webinar will last approximately 30 minutes, including Q&As at the end. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat and we will try to reply them at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, we will reply them by email. We will also send you the presentation per email, as well as the link to the recording next week. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Nuria Garcia Pazos, Senior Consultant. Nuria has a degree in biotechnology and 2 master's degrees on the fields of pharmaceutical industry and regulatory affairs. She has extensive experience in CITES implementation, clinical trials regulation, and clinical data disclosure, among others. In today's webinar, she will review key EMA transparency policies and regulatory requirements in the European Union. So, Nuria will take it from here. Nuria, please, whenever you are ready.
Okay, hello, can you hear me well?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, great. So hello everybody, welcome to this webinar. We will be discussing the European data disclosure procedures. So we have a lot of information to share, but please, I will try to cover all the topics, but we just have half an hour. So the presentation will be shared afterwards. So for some slides, don't worry if you don't catch everything, you will have the slides afterwards. So this slide just to remember that we are celebrating 25 years this year of our company Asphalion. And this is the agenda for today's webinar. I will start with an introduction of basic concepts on transparency, because these are shared among all the policies and procedures, and it's basic information to take into account for all these requirements in transparency. And then we will review the main transparency procedures in the European Union. The first, the policy 0070, which is the EMA policy on publication of clinical data. This is the most regulated procedure so far, and the one with most specific assessment phase, specific requirements, and it's like the model to all the other transparency policies and transparency procedures. So we will start with this, then to go to the EMA policy on access to documents, or policy 43. Then I will also talk about the clinical trials regulation and the requirements in transparency and data disclosure for clinical trials in the European Union under the new regulation. And then in the end, just a bit of information about the European public assessment reports and the risk management plans that are disclosed to the public and that need also to be processed before disclosure. And then at the end, some recommendations and an overall review of project management of this type of data disclosure procedures and transparency procedures. So starting with the basic concepts. So the EMA has great interest in being as open as possible with the information that they manage, and their intention is, well, first, like institutionally, to build this public trust and confidence on the decisions regarding pharmaceutical products and authorizations and procedures in the Union, but also trying to achieve more scientific goal, avoiding the duplication of information about clinical trials, and try to foster innovation and encouraging the development of new medicines. And also for another goal is to allow academics and other researchers to reassess clinical data, maybe in the future when more details are shared, but just to have more information about the medicines, just to improve research and innovation. So for general principles, the main topic is that when a document is going to be published, It must be reviewed and redacted or anonymized in order to protect personal data, but also to protect commercially confidential information. And this is the main activity that the owners of these documents and the owners of this information need to manage before the information is disclosed. And there is a common guidance agreed by the HMA and the EMA, defining the common approach on the consideration of personal data and commercially confidential information in the marketing authorization dossier of a medicinal product for human use. So then when we share the presentation, you will have the links to all the reference mentioned. So there is this common guidance that all the authorities should follow in the European Union. So for describing and defining these types of information, PPD and CCI. So PPD is personal protected data, and this means the information related directly or indirectly to an identified or identifiable natural person, which is the data subject. So this is any characteristic, any detail that could be linked to an individual and that could potentially identify this person. So in order to protect the data subject from being identified, also in agreement with the General Data Protection Regulation, before the disclosure of the document, it's required to conduct a procedure to ensure the appropriate anonymization of this information. This anonymization is achieved by the implementation of different anonymization techniques that what they pursue is to transform this information or to modify this personal protected data to allow to not allow the re-identification of the individual. And the target of the anonymization process is to apply a set of transformation and rules for transformation that allow to reduce the risk of re-identification below a set threshold that is considered acceptable. And regarding how can we modify this information of this personal data, there are different techniques. So this is just a relation for you to understand what are the transformations available. So one of them should be the most basic one, the reduction or masking, which is just to block the information with an opaque box over to not allow the reading this information. Other option would be the generalization, which is to dilute this information or this data by modifying it in a specific scale or order of magnitude. So for example, instead of mentioning a specific age for an individual, so change this by a range or by a mean age number in a specific age range. Other will be recoding or pseudonymization, just to randomly recode the information about subjects. Offset could be related to dates, where these dates are differ some fixed quantity, but maintaining the relationships. And suppression, just to remove and instead mention the specific category of the variable. Then the other type of information to be processed is CCI, which is confidential commercial information. And this shall mean any information which is not in the public domain or publicly available, and where the disclosure may undermine the legitimate economic interest of the applicant, market authorization holder, or sponsor in this case. So it's very important for CCI management to confirm the information is not already in the public domain. Otherwise, it will not be classified or accepted as CCI anymore. And for this, we recommend to compile specific websites or databases and documents that include information regarding the product, and just to confirm that the information considered as CCI has not been already released. And also it's important to notice that the fact that certain types of information are not in the public domain yet doesn't necessarily mean that they should be considered as CCI. It's key to determine how the disclosure would undermine the economic interest of the company. And this is the main justification for considering a piece of information as CCI. Then also it should be considered that some terms could be CCI at a time at the development phase of the product, but not anymore as the clinical development goes further and once the authorization is granted. And our recommendation is to involve multidisciplinary team to identify CCI candidates. And we really encourage to manage a CCI tracker from early development phases. So identify this information from the beginning of the development or through the early stages, and keep tracking of this and ensure it's not disclosed in any document if it's really considered a CCI and it would harm the owner of the information. So going to the first procedure, which is the policy on publication of clinical data, or known as Policy 70. This policy was first adopted in 2014, and it has two phases. Currently, only phase 1 has been activated, which concerns just the publication of clinical reports. But in the policy, there's also a phase 2 that would concern also the publication of individual patient data. So it's these individual details that are recorded for all the subjects that have participated on clinical trials. But this is not yet active, and we don't know yet when it will start. But as said, we are in phase 1, but the implementation of Policy 70 has not been of full applicants since the beginning. The policy became effective in 2015, and then started through 2016, 17. Then in 2018, it was suspended due to Brexit and relocation of the EMA. In the pandemic, it was reactivated for COVID treatments and vaccines. And then in 2023, the relaunch was implemented, but this just concerning new marketing authorizations for new active substances that received the CHMP opinion or withdrawn after September 2023. And now we are waiting for the relaunch of step 2. It was advertised that it would be from the second Q2 of 2025, but we are still pending date confirmation. And this will consider all new marketing authorization applications, including negative opinions, withdrawn applications, and also line extensions and major clinical type 2 variations as extensions of indications. Biosimilars, hybrids, and generics would be excluded from this step 2 of the relaunch. So what's the scope of this Policy 70? What is published? In this phase 1, only clinical reports are published, and this would be understood as Module 2.5, 2.7 being 2.7, 1 to 4, and then Module 5.3 for study reports of clinical trials. Regarding the clinical study reports, it's only published the body and some appendices. These appendices are the study protocol, the sample case report form, and the statisticals method appendix. And when is this policy applicable? So this is just after the conclusion of the regulatory procedure, just for centralized marketing authorization procedures assessed by the CHMP. So after the opinion of the CHMP, or in case of withdrawal, after withdrawal by the applicant, this procedure starts. And for all these procedures we mentioned, like market authorization applications, extensions, line extensions, and also for medicines for all, which are these from high priority human medicines outside the European Union. The packages, or how is the format of submission in this procedure? So this procedure is highly regulated. It has specific timelines for assessment and submission from the applicant, and it has two ECTD sequences that need to be submitted. One is the redaction proposal document package, where the proposals for redaction and anonymization are sent to the EMA. Then the EMA assess this proposal, and after they agree, the final redacted document package is submitted with the final proposals already implemented in the documents, and it's not possible to change this proposal. So the documents are fully transformed in this sequence. And these are the documents that are then published in the clinical data publication webpage. There are some other annexes, but of main importance, there are the justification tables and anonymization report. And where are these? So the justification tables are the specific documents where the justifications for the proposed CCI must be provided to the EMA. There is a very in-depth assessment of the justifications for CCI proposals, and the EMA expects a very detailed rationale from the applicant for all the pieces of information that are classified as CCI and that they want to redact from the documents that will be disclosed. So this is a specific template where the exact proposed CCI verbatim must be included with the pages, title of sections and everything, and a very detailed justification must be included. To guide for preparation of justification tables, there are some examples of information that could be potentially CCI in the policy 0070 guidance, but also there are some rejection codes for also to guide the applicant to understand in which cases the EMA could object and reject the CCI proposals that the applicant has made. So I'm not going to detail all of this, but you have here the link to access and to help you prepare these justification tables. And then the other main document for Policy 70 is the anonymization report, but now it's included in a specific form. This document describes the methodology of the anonymization applied in the clinical reports and how the risk of re-identification has been measured and is being managed. So there's a specific guidance to follow to fulfill this report, and it contains different sections, but the main is to explain the anonymization approach, so how the risk has been assessed, and what are the set of rules that modify the variables, being those direct or indirect identifiers, and that are being implemented in the full set of documents submitted in this procedure. Regarding the risk assessment, there are two types of approach for a risk assessment. One is non-analytical, is qualitative risk assessment, and this is just to qualify the risk between high, medium, or low risk, but not with a specific analysis for determination of this risk level. And then the other approach is the analytical or empirical measure of the risk, and is a quantitative risk assessment. This obtains specific numeric values about the risk of re-identification, and the numeric value for an acceptable threshold by the authorities is below 0.09. Both approaches are acceptable, but the authorities would prefer quantitative methodology as preferred approach, but both until the moment are acceptable. Then there is the topic of data utility versus risk of re-identification. So all the transformations implemented in the document should take into account a balance between reducing the risk of re-identification by applying transformations, but still maintain data utility for the public that will receive those documents, so to understand the information that these documents contain and the clinical data. So it's just a balance. Okay, and this is the full timeline for Policy 70 procedure. There are a lot of steps, but just to summarize, there is the option to have a pre-submission meeting or to discuss this topic in a pre-submission interaction with the EMA. Then, well, this is a type of timeline for a new marketing authorization application. For this procedure, the applicant will receive an invitation email for the procedure to follow Policy 70 by day 121. Then afterwards, between 30 days before and after the CHMP opinion, the applicant should submit the reduction proposal document package. Then there is the phase for assessment from the EMA. The sequence is validated, then the EMA sends their conclusions after review to the applicant. There is some exchange of comments for CCI and also for the anonymization report. And then finally, the EMA sends the final feedback to the applicant, and the final redacted document package is then prepared and submitted then for the publication in the website. Okay. So then the other policy that we will cover is policy on access to documents, policy 43. This policy follows the aim of the EMA to ensure that there is the widest possible access to documents that are originated, that have been received or are held in the EMA possession in the context of agencies, policies, activities, and decision. And this policy has like a twofold approach. It covers written requests for specific documents that are held by the EMA, and then it also covers some proactive disclosure, but here in this webinar we will just mention the written request. And this request can only be submitted by citizens of the European Union or organizations that have registered offices in a European Union member state. Requests from outside the European Union are not accepted. This is for limitations of the resources of the EMA. Okay, and what are the documents that could be requested? So in principle, the request can include any type of document that is held by the agency and that is not yet public. First, I have put here in documents related to corporate activities of the EMA, so procurement, conflicts of interest, SOPs, other corporate documents from the EMA. And there is a specific list of this type of documents, but this is not so relevant in our context and for the audience. So the other main type of documents that could be requested are those related to medicinal products for human and veterinary use. And this will cover documents in relation to product-specific issues, so related also to the different EMA committees' activities, some organizational documents, the other documents prepared by the EMA in the context of transparency activities, and one of the main topics or documents are those submitted by the applicant as marketing authorization holders. So there could be a request of a marketing authorization dossier sections and also the updates of these documents. It includes also pharmacovigilance post-authorization procedures and for which type of products, so for centralized procedures, but also for centralized and national products in case of referrals or pharmacovigilance procedures that are common. The full detail of the documents that could be requested is also included in this annex, and you could also check. But in principle, all these documents could be subject to a request from a citizen or an organization in the European Union. And how to request one of these documents? So there is a specific web form is on the same section that you can send any question to the EMA. In the web form, the details of the contact that is making the request should be included. And also the requester should clearly identify the documents that would like to receive. But still, there is the option, so there is one option to just request some documents, but there is another option where you can request the documents, but also ask for specific help to identify the document that you will need. So in case you are uncertain about the documents you want to request, or that it will be useful for you, there is the option to demand help for identifying the document of interest. Then the designated access to documents coordinator will contact the requester for clarifying the scope of this procedure. But still is advised to provide as much information as possible in the free text part. This is the procedure for policy 0043. So to submit the request via web form, you will receive a reference number, is asked, and a series of numbers. Then the requester will receive the acknowledgement, and in case, if applicable, some request for clarifications for the access to documents coordinator. Then there is the assessment of the documents of the request received, and a possible batching for providing these documents. So in case the document request is very large, like a CSR with appendices, the delivery to the requester could be done in batches. And then after 15 working days from the reception of clarifications by the coordinator, the requester will receive a decision, so accepting to provide the documents, or informing about an extension of 15 additional working days. A reason will be provided in case of extension, and then after all this process, the final decision and document release will be received by the requester. If the documents are sent to the requester, this would be done via UDRA-link, and the reception must be confirmed to inform the access to documents coordinator, but also a refusal can be received about the request. So in case of receiving a refusal, there is also the option to ask the EMA to reconsider this decision by an appeal via the web form. And in case the documents that are being requested are from a third party, so for example, documents for a dossier of a specific medicinal product, the EMA will contact and liaise directly with this third party for discussion about the content and information that might need to be protected. So for identification of CCI or PPD in those documents that have been requested. And this is done before any document can be released, because the EMA is not the owner of this information, and they will always try to reach the owner and the applicant. And usually the deadline is about 5 working days. It cannot be shorter than 5 working days to give the opportunity to the third party to review all these documents. Still in this process, there are additional 10 working days in case of disagreement between the third party and the EMA for further discussion and to decide the final documents that are released to the requester. And that would be the policy 43. I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit. It's almost 3:30, but I'm just finishing. I will go fast. Clinical trial regulations. So the clinical trials regulation also mandates the publication of the information about clinical trials uploaded on CTIS. There was a revision of transparency rules, because at the beginning almost the full CTA dossier was published, and it was a big workload and a big burden for the sponsors. So then some simplifications were applied, and now much less documents are published, and also there are specific publication timelines depending on the trial category. So there are 3 types of categories for clinical trials: Category 1 for phase 1, 0 bioequivalence similarity. Category 2 for phase 1, 2, and 3. And category 3 for trials of phases 3, 4, and 4. And there are specific timelines. So both for structured data, that is entered directly on CTIS, and also for the documents. And the document types that are released are very few now after the simplification. So mainly protocol, synopsis, patient-facing documents, SMPC, subject information and informed consent form, and recruitment arrangements, and then the results and any other documents are never published. And the timelines changes between category 1 and category 2 and 3, but much more simpler than before. And how the documents are provided. So CTIS gives the option to upload the first version of a document for publication in case of those documents in scope for public disclosure. And this for publication document that is uploaded should be the one transformed and redacted for protecting PPD and CCI. And there is then the option to upload a version not for publication with the full information for the authorities to review. But it's the responsibility of the CTIS users to upload the documents in the specific position, and there is no automatic verification about the correctness of the documents in any of this position. And still, the member states could make some comments on the reduction proposals, but it's not a specific procedure and detailed review of the proposals as the other policies 70 and 43. So in this case, there is no in-depth assessment. As far as we know, there are no enough resources on national competent authorities for the moment for clinical trials regulation transparency documents. And then also the EPARs, European Public Assessment Reports, must be published. These are the documents that provide information on the medicines that have been granted or for which marketing authorization has been refused, and it provides public information on the medicine and how it was assessed. For this, there is a much simpler procedure. It's just the EMA reaches the applicant with the document proposed to be published as EPAR, and they ask the owner to transform in track changes the CCI and PPD included in the document. So the document in the end won't have reduction boxes. It's just that the wording itself in the Word version of the EPAR is proposed for some modifications in track changes. A justification should be provided, but it's not in a specific format of justification tables, and neither an anonymization report is required. And this procedure follows the principles of the CCI and PPD agreed by the HMA and the EMA. And finally, the risk management plan. This there is the requirement from October 2023 to publish the risk management plan. So the main body and annexes 4 and 6 for centrally authorized products, for initial assessments, for initial marketing authorization, and also for RMP updates. And the EMA strongly encourages to anonymize or transform PPD and removing CCI from the draft risk management plan. So by following an editorial approach and similar to the EPAR, trying to avoid reductions afterward, like in black boxes, and just modifying the document so this information is not included anymore. And there is a specific guidance that explains all these requirements for risk management plans that is also linked here. And it's very important that after the application and the outcome of the CHMP, these 3 files need to be provided, but also if you have any variation that includes an updated version of a risk management plan in the working documents folder of the ECTD sequence, you should include the redacted risk management plan file. Then the file showing the reduction proposals, if applicable, if there are some boxes applied on the document. So this document should be provided, and then a signed declaration for the risk management plan publication. If this is not included in a variation, you will receive validation comments for amendment. And then just to finish, as key points for data disclosure management and as an overview, I'm sorry because I have a lot of information and this has, I'm 5 minutes longer than expected, but in summary, what I wanted to share with you is that this is quite a complex procedure. Documents for transparency procedures, the workload can be quite high because of the number of pages to process, and it's key to have some points in your mind. So first, to acknowledge if your submission will be subject to public disclosure, or if you are submitting a new marketing authorization application via centralized procedure, and if you will be falling in the scope of Policy 70, so to plan ahead in advance. Then to share awareness to all the stakeholders involved. It's quite a work to prepare one of these submission. To have very clear the scope and the list of expected documents that you have to process. So for every policy, but also, for example, for your clinical trials application, to understand the documents that you need to review. Then to have clear definition of CCI and review, highly recommended to keep a tracker or some listing on CCIs that you consider very relevant for the company and for the economic interest of the company. Then these two topics are more for Policy 70, but it's the definition of the risk assessment approach for personal protected data. Then the option to have a pre-submission meeting, also to align with EMA on their expectations and the strategy that will be followed. Then the specific reduction and anonymization part of the procedure where all the rules are implemented. We also always implement a quality check for review and a revision tracker when there are several documents to process, so to everything is tracked and any document is missed. And then in the end, the publishing, if applicable, via ECTD sequence and submission, so for all the procedures on CTIS, HydraLink, or the specific way depending on the procedure. And lots of references for all these procedures, but you will have all linked here in the presentation. And thank you. I'm sorry for being a bit late.
Lovely. Thank you, Nuria, for this fantastic webinar, and thanks to all the attendees. We hope you enjoy it. And we have received some questions, but since we've run out of time, Nuria will respond to them directly by email. Have a nice afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.